Your mind is like a movie that never ends, replaying scenes you should have left behind and fast, forwarding to fears that haven't even happened yet. You wake up thinking, what if I fail? You go to sleep thinking, what if I never figure it out? That constant noise in your head, that loop of worry and what ifs, it's not helping you prepare, it's keeping you paralyzed. The more you think, the less you move. And the less you move, the louder your mind gets. You start mistaking the chaos of your thoughts for control, as if the more you analyze, the safer you'll be. But all you're really doing is building walls around the very life you're supposed to be living. You've trained your mind to doubt before it decides. You've built a habit of hesitation. Every opportunity that tries to reach you gets filtered through 1,000 layers of overthinking until you talk yourself out of what was meant for you. You convince yourself you're being cautious, wise, or realistic, but deep down you know, it's fear wearing a logical mask. The truth is, most of the things you worry about will never even happen. Yet you spend your energy fighting battles that exist only in your imagination. That's not wisdom, that's exhaustion disguised as preparation. You can't hear God when your thoughts are screaming louder than His whisper. He's not in the noise of your anxiety. He's in the stillness you keep avoiding. Every time you pause to overanalyze, you tune out the very frequency that's trying to guide you. The divine doesn't rush, it flows. And flow doesn't come from thinking your way through life. It comes from trusting your way through it. You don't need more answers, you need more alignment. The noise in your mind isn't a sign that you're broken. It's a signal that you've stopped trusting the silence. The world has conditioned you to believe that control equals safety. So you plan, you predict, you pre-analyze every possible outcome as if you can outthink destiny. But God doesn't operate within your spreadsheet. He moves through surrender, not certainty. You can't control the timing, the people, or the process. But you can control your willingness to trust that it's all leading somewhere meaningful. The irony of overthinking is that it tries to protect you from pain, but ends up stealing your peace. You were never meant to figure it all out. You were meant to move, and trust that clarity will come with motion. Every time you hesitate on a calling, the universe waits for your movement. Every delay rooted in doubt sends a message to heaven that you don't believe you're ready. But readiness isn't a feeling, it's a decision. It's not about waiting until you feel sure. It's about acting even when you're uncertain. Because peace doesn't come from solving every problem. It comes from stepping out in faith and watching the pieces align. God doesn't give you every step because He wants you to depend on His voice, not your logic. And maybe that's the lesson your overthinking has been trying to teach you all along, that control was never the goal, peace was. That your thoughts aren't meant to cage you, they're meant to remind you that your spirit is bigger than your fear. You can't think your way into freedom. You can only trust your way into it. The moment you stop letting your mind run the show, the heart steps forward and says, finally, now I can lead. Faith doesn't always make sense, and that's the point. You've been trying to reason with something that was never meant to be rationalized. You want blueprints, signs, and confirmations before you take a single step. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith is walking into the fog with no flashlight, trusting that light will appear when it's supposed to. Logic tells you to wait until it's safe. Faith tells you to move even when it's not. The mind wants a plan, but the soul wants progress. And progress never comes from certainty, it comes from trust. You can't calculate faith. You can't schedule it, map it, or explain it in a spreadsheet. Faith isn't data, it's direction. It's the ability to keep going when your eyes see nothing but chaos and your heart whispers, keep walking. When you demand that everything makes sense before you move, you're not waiting on God, you're stalling yourself. The universe doesn't unfold to those who demand proof. It opens to those who dare to believe without it. Because the magic of faith isn't that it makes sense, it's that it makes movement possible when logic says stop. Logic says, show me, then I'll believe. Faith says believe, and then you'll see. That's the difference between those who live by sight and those who live by spirit. You don't need to know how it's going to work out. You just need to know that it will. The plan is too big for your human understanding to process all at once. That's why faith exists, to bridge the gap between what you can see and what God has already prepared. If everything made sense, there would be no room for miracles. Faith is not blind, it's visionary. It doesn't ignore reality, it looks beyond it. You don't have to pretend everything is fine. You just have to believe that everything is forming. The difference between fear and faith is direction. Both require belief in something unseen, but one imagines failure while the other expects victory. Every time you choose to trust, you rewrite the energy of your life. Every time you choose belief over doubt, the universe rearranges itself to meet your courage. Stop overthinking whether it's the right time, the right path, or the right idea. Faith doesn't need perfect timing, it creates it. The moment you move in faith, time bends to meet your obedience. Doors open not because you forced them, but because you finally aligned yourself with divine flow. The problem isn't that you can't hear God. It's that you keep arguing with Him using logic. Faith doesn't negotiate, it acts. And the beauty is, you don't need to understand the entire plan to trust it. You just need to take the next step. Because faith grows in motion, not in analysis. The more you move, the clearer things become. God doesn't show you the whole staircase because He knows you'll overthink it. He shows you one step, and when you take it, the next one appears. That's not confusion, that's divine choreography. And it begins the moment you stop asking, how, and start saying, yes. Overthinking is like driving with the brakes on. You're moving, but you're burning out. You've been given dreams that were meant to set you on fire, yet you keep dimming them with endless questions. What if it fails? What if they judge me? What if it's not meant to be? Every what if pulls you one step further from the life that's waiting for you. The truth is, destiny doesn't require perfect understanding. It requires courageous execution. You can't reach the mountaintop by analyzing the height of every step. You get there by climbing one uncertain move at a time. Every time you overthink, you interrupt the flow of divine timing. God gives you impulses, nudges, and inner whispers that are meant to be acted on, not dissected. But instead of trusting them, you start replaying every possible outcome, every past failure, every opinion that might surface. You end up paralyzed, not because the dream isn't real, but because your fear built a fence around it. Destiny doesn't die from doubt, it dies from delay. The universe can't deliver what you keep postponing. You think overthinking protects you from mistakes, but it actually robs you of momentum. You can't learn from what you never start. You can't be guided while standing still. God's guidance is GPS-based. It needs movement to redirect you. When you freeze in indecision, heaven has nothing to work with. But the moment you take a step, even a clumsy one, the path begins to adjust. Overthinking turns potential into paralysis, but action turns uncertainty into revelation. Overthinking isn't intelligence. It's fear wearing the mask of wisdom. You call it being careful, but deep down, it's about control. You want to predict outcomes before they happen because you're scared of getting hurt. But God doesn't ask for your prediction. He asks for your participation. You can't outthink His plan. You can't reason your way into peace. Peace doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from trusting that the one who does won't let you fall. The mind loves to build problems the spirit never asked to solve. It turns every step into a debate, every decision into a disaster scenario. But your purpose doesn't need your fear's permission. It just needs your yes. You weren't designed to live in hesitation. You were built for boldness. The longer you stay trapped in your thoughts, the more distant your calling becomes. Every destiny delayed by doubt becomes a story untold, a miracle missed, a chapter never written. And maybe that's the greatest tragedy of overthinking, not the mistakes you fear making, but the moments you never experience. Life isn't waiting for your certainty, it's waiting for your courage. The dream doesn't die when you fail. It dies when you refuse to try. God's plan doesn't require your perfection. It requires your permission. The only thing standing between you and your destiny is the thought that says, "What if I'm not ready?" You are. You always were. You just needed to stop thinking and start walking. We've been taught that strength means control, that you're only powerful when you have every detail handled, every outcome predicted, every emotion contained. But that's not strength, that's survival mode. Real strength begins where control ends. When you surrender, you're not giving up, you're giving God room to move. You stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. You stop forcing doors that weren't meant to open. You start trusting that what's for you won't need manipulation to arrive. Surrender isn't weakness, it's divine alignment in action. You can't receive with closed fists. Yet so many people live clenched, holding on to pain plans and people that were never part of their long-term purpose. You can't hear a new direction if you're still gripping old instructions. The more you try to control everything, the more you suffocate the flow of blessings trying to reach you. God doesn't compete with your need for control. He waits for you to let go so he can finally take over. The moment you surrender, you exchange the anxiety of performance for the peace of partnership. The world celebrates those who never break, but heaven celebrates those who know when to bend. You don't prove your strength by pretending you have it all together. You prove it by admitting that you don't and trusting that grace will fill the gaps. Surrender isn't about quitting. It's about acknowledging that your power has limits and his doesn't. You weren't created to carry every burden. Some things are too heavy because they were never yours to hold. Letting go isn't failure, it's faith in motion. When you surrender, you create space for miracles to happen. Because miracles don't move through resistance, they move through release. The tighter you hold, the less you receive. God doesn't need you to plan every detail. He just needs your willingness to follow where peace leads. Sometimes peace will guide you away from what you wanted, and that's okay. The goal isn't to get everything you prayed for, it's to trust that what you get will grow you. Surrender transforms confusion into clarity because it shifts the question from why to what now. Control is exhausting because it puts you at the center of every solution. But surrender allows you to rest in the awareness that you are not alone in the process. When you surrender, you stop forcing outcomes and start flowing with divine timing. You stop panicking about how things will work out and start recognizing that they already are. It's not that everything suddenly makes sense. It's that you stop needing it to. Peace doesn't come from having power over the situation. It comes from knowing who's in control of it. And maybe that's the secret the strong never tell you, that their power doesn't come from never falling apart, but from knowing who to hand the pieces to when they do. The most powerful moment in your life won't be when you finally get control, it'll be when you finally release it. Because surrender doesn't make you smaller, it makes you freer. It allows you to breathe again, to trust again, to move again. It opens the door for grace to flow where anxiety once lived. You think you're running late. You think you've missed your moment, your season, your chance. You scroll through other people's success stories and convince yourself that you're behind. But what if you're not late? You're just being aligned. What if the delay is divine? God's timing doesn't operate on your schedule because he's not preparing the clock. He's preparing you. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every season of silence isn't punishment. It's positioning. You're not waiting for your time to come. Your time is waiting for you to be ready. You can't rush what's being refined. Just because you can't see growth doesn't mean it isn't happening. Seeds don't sprout the moment they're planted. They grow in the dark, beneath the surface, in the quiet where no one applauds. That's how purpose works, hidden, unseen, protected. You think nothing's happening because you can't measure it, but heaven is busy arranging everything for your arrival. The roots of your purpose are forming in places no one can see. And when the time is right, what's been planted in silence will bloom in sight. Your timeline is not God's obligation. You made plans, set goals, created deadlines, but destiny doesn't check your calendar. It doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to preparation. Sometimes the delay is the only thing keeping you from destruction. You're asking for blessings you're not yet built to carry. You're begging for opportunities that could break you if they came too soon. God loves you too much to hand you something that would harm you. His not yet isn't rejection, it's protection. Patience isn't passive, it's powerful. It's not waiting around doing nothing, it's trusting while growing. It's understanding that the process is sacred. When you learn to trust divine timing, you stop comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 10. You stop envying people who arrive faster and start preparing for your moment to arrive stronger. Your timeline isn't delayed, it's divine. Every slow season is a setup for acceleration. Every pause is a lesson in disguise. You have to stop confusing stillness with stagnation. Stillness is when God works in silence. He's rearranging pieces, moving people, closing doors that would have distracted you. You think you're waiting on opportunity, but sometimes opportunity is waiting on your maturity. You can't demand a harvest without respecting the season of planting. The waiting room isn't wasted time. It's where faith grows roots deep enough to handle the weight of what's coming next. And when it finally happens, when everything clicks, when the doors swing open, when what you prayed for meets you halfway, you'll understand why it took so long. You'll realize it wasn't a delay, it was development. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. The right thing at the wrong time becomes the wrong thing. But the right thing at the right time feels effortless, peaceful, and divine. That's what happens when you stop racing the clock and start walking with the creator of time itself. Fear isn't the absence of faith, it's faith misplaced. It's a belief in the wrong outcome, energy invested in the worst case scenario. When you fear, you're still imagining the future. You've just chosen the version where everything falls apart instead of where everything falls into place. You are powerful enough to create both. That's why fear feels so convincing, because it uses the same energy as faith. The difference is the direction. The same imagination that builds your nightmares can also build your miracles. You've been taught to fight fear, but what if you just redirected it? What if instead of asking, what if it goes wrong? You asked, what if it goes right? The mind will always build a picture to match your focus. So if you expect disaster, you'll see obstacles. But if you expect alignment, you'll start seeing opportunity. Your energy creates evidence. Every fearful thought is a seed, and what you water with attention, you grow with experience. Fear isn't trying to stop you, it's trying to show you where you stop trusting. Every time fear shows up, it's a mirror reflecting your attachment to control. You're scared of losing what you can't guarantee: outcomes, people approval. But fear only has power where trust is absent. When you trust in God's plan, fear loses its grip because you no longer rely on your limited understanding to keep you safe. The antidote to fear isn't courage, it's surrender. Courage is the action that follows trust, not the feeling that precedes it. You don't overcome fear by suppressing it, you overcome it by realigning it toward faith. Fear is a storyteller, and it's good at its job. It knows exactly how to paint vivid pictures of failure, rejection, and regret. But faith tells a different story with the same canvas. It uses the same colors: uncertainty, risk, vulnerability, but it paints a masterpiece instead of a mess. You can't silence fear by arguing with it. You silence it by moving despite it. Action rewires belief faster than analysis ever will. Movement is proof that faith is stronger than fear. Every time you choose faith, you weaken the voice of fear. You don't need to be fearless, you just need to stop feeding fear with attention. When fear says, "You can't," faith whispers, "Watch me." The more you move in alignment, the more your fear begins to fade because it realizes it no longer controls the direction of your energy. Fear's power is borrowed, and you're the lender. The moment you withdraw your belief in its lies, it loses its authority. And that's the shift. Realizing that fear isn't a wall, it's a door. It's meant to be walked through, not obeyed. On the other side of fear is everything your faith has been asking for. Every breakthrough, every divine connection, every answered prayer, they're all waiting beyond the boundary of your fear. You don't need to eliminate it, you just need to walk past it. Because faith doesn't erase fear, it outruns it. You keep waiting for a sign, a signal, a clear confirmation before you move. But the sign was the thought. The sign was the pull. The sign was the spark that refused to go away, even when logic tried to drown it out. You keep saying, "When I know for sure, I'll start." But that's not how miracles work. Miracles meet momentum. Heaven doesn't bless hesitation, it blesses movement. The moment you take one step in faith, the universe rearranges itself to meet your motion. The energy of life responds to those who move, not to those who overthink. Action is the language of belief. You can pray for a door to open, but if you never walk toward it, you'll never know it was unlocked. You can ask for clarity, but if you don't take the first step, the map can't appear. God doesn't reveal the full plan because he wants you to participate in the process. The revelation comes as you walk. Every step creates space for guidance to enter. You don't need the full picture to start. You just need enough light for the next move. Too many people are paralyzed by perfection. You think you need to be fully ready, fully healed, fully confident before you start. But God doesn't require perfection. He requires participation. He doesn't wait for you to feel strong before using you. He uses you to make you strong. Movement doesn't mean you have it all figured out. It means you trust enough to begin. Miracles rarely show up in comfort zones. They show up in the discomfort of obedience. You've prayed for a breakthrough, but maybe your breakthrough is waiting for you to move first. You want divine momentum, but momentum requires motion. Even the smallest act of faith can shift the atmosphere around you. You think your step is insignificant, but heaven celebrates it like a trumpet. God can't steer a parked car, but once you start rolling, direction becomes divine. Every step in faith sends a signal to the universe, I'm ready. And readiness attracts revelation. Movement doesn't mean chaos. It means commitment. It's not about rushing, it's about trusting. You don't have to sprint, you just have to start. Progress doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes the quiet steps forward are the loudest declaration of faith. Every motion, every decision, every risk says, I believe there's more waiting for me. When you move, you align your frequency with expansion. When you stay still in fear, you align with stagnation. God meets you where you move, and that's the secret. Miracles don't happen to those who stand still, waiting for the perfect moment. They happen to those who walk forward despite not knowing what comes next. You don't activate miracles by thinking harder, you activate them by trusting deeper. The movement of your feet becomes the music of your faith. Every step, no matter how small, carries divine rhythm. And the moment you move, the universe begins to dance with you. You keep asking for a smooth path, but growth doesn't happen in comfort. You want blessings without breaking, lessons without losses, and purpose without pressure. But that's not how divine plans unfold. Comfort zones are safe, but nothing grows there. Every great transformation begins with discomfort. The stretch, the uncertainty, the resistance that shapes you into who you're meant to be. God's plan isn't designed to make you comfortable, it's designed to make you capable. The pain you're avoiding is often the process that's preparing you. Discomfort is not a sign that something's wrong, it's a sign that something's shifting. The same heat that melts wax hardens clay. It all depends on what you're made of. When life starts to get uncomfortable, that's not rejection, that's refinement. God is stretching you to fit the size of your future. You prayed for strength, so he sent resistance. You asked for growth, so he sent change. You asked for faith, so he sent uncertainty. Every uncomfortable season is an answered prayer in disguise. If you only follow God when it feels good, you'll never discover what faith really is. Faith doesn't thrive in ease, it thrives in tension. The plan isn't supposed to feel safe. It's supposed to feel sacred. You'll know you're in alignment with divine purpose when you feel both fear and excitement at the same time. That's the sweet spot where heaven whispers, "You're exactly where you need to be." Discomfort doesn't mean you're off track. It often means you're right on schedule. You can't grow and stay the same. You can't evolve and remain untouched. Transformation demands discomfort. It requires surrendering the version of you that fits your past to make room for the one that's built for your future. God isn't trying to hurt you. He's trying to stretch you beyond the limits of your own understanding. Every time you resist the stretch, you delay your elevation. Every time you embrace it, you expand your capacity to carry what's coming. You've got to stop praying for ease and start praying for endurance. Stop asking for comfort and start asking for character. Comfort builds complacency, but pressure builds power. Diamonds don't form in calm, they form under heat. Butterflies don't emerge without struggle, they break free through resistance. The same is true for you. Every hardship, every challenge, every uncomfortable moment is carving the strength that your next season requires. And maybe that's what faith really looks like. Not smiling through pain, but trusting through it. Not pretending you're okay, but believing you will be. The plan was never meant to be easy, because easy never made anyone extraordinary. God doesn't use comfort to call you higher. He uses challenge. He doesn't test your pain tolerance. He tests your trust. Because only when you stop running from discomfort do you finally realize the struggle was never punishment. It was preparation for purpose. That quiet voice inside you, the one that nudges, the one that stirs when something feels off, that's not just your gut, that's guidance. You keep waiting for a loud sign, a flashing message, an obvious answer from the sky, but God rarely speaks in thunder. He speaks in whispers. He speaks through the peace that makes no sense and the discomfort that won't let you settle. Intuition is the sacred language of your soul, a private conversation between you and heaven. But the more you overthink, the more static you create in that connection. You've mistaken volume for validation. You think that because it's quiet, it can't be real. But the truth is, divine direction rarely shouts. It requires stillness to be heard. You're not missing God's voice, you're just drowning it under the noise of your own fear. Every time you doubt your intuition, you silence a message that was meant to protect or propel you. That's why stillness isn't laziness, it's leadership. It's the space where you remember who you are and why you're here. Intuition doesn't argue, it doesn't beg to be believed. It simply whispers and waits. It doesn't explain itself, because truth doesn't need to. The more you learn to trust that inner knowing, the stronger it becomes. You'll start to recognize that what you once called coincidences were confirmations. That gut feeling wasn't random. It was divine alignment trying to get your attention. Every nudge, every sudden idea, every persistent thought that feels peaceful but powerful, that's heaven guiding your next step. You keep asking for directions while ignoring instructions. You want a roadmap, but God already gave you a compass, your intuition. The problem is, you keep trying to negotiate with it. You want reassurance before obedience. You say, God, show me more. While He says, trust what I already showed you. Intuition doesn't give you the whole picture because it's meant to train your trust, not your logic. If you only follow what you understand, you'll never experience the supernatural. You don't need to force clarity. You need to create quiet. Because clarity doesn't come through control. It comes through calm. When you quiet your thoughts long enough, you'll start noticing how the answers were always there, tucked between your breaths, hidden in the pauses, waiting beneath the noise. The whisper never left, you just stopped listening. And when you start listening again, the universe will respond like it's been waiting for you to tune back in. And that's the beauty of it. Intuition isn't mystical, it's relational. It's not about predicting the future, it's about partnering with it. It's the gentle pull that says, this way, when everything else screams, don't move. It's the peace that doesn't make sense but feels right. And when you learn to trust that whisper, you stop chasing signs because you realize the sign is already inside you. You think doubt means you failed faith, but it's actually where faith begins. Doubt doesn't disqualify you, it develops you. It's not the enemy of belief, it's the evidence that you're reaching beyond what you can control. Even the strongest believers wrestle with doubt because faith isn't about never questioning. It's about choosing trust in the middle of questions. God never asked you to be certain. He asked you to be willing. He doesn't need perfection. He needs participation. When you doubt, it doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. It means you're trying to make sense of a plan that's bigger than your logic can handle. And that's okay, because faith doesn't remove the unknown. It teaches you to walk through it. Every time you take a step in the dark, every time you say, I don't know how, but I'll move anyway, heaven celebrates that kind of courage. You're not supposed to have it all figured out. That's what trust is for. You've been conditioned to believe that faith means feeling strong all the time. But real faith feels fragile. It shakes, it questions, it cries, it stumbles, but it still moves forward. The people who walk the farthest with God aren't the ones who never doubt. They're the ones who keep walking even when they do. Faith isn't about pretending you're fearless. It's about trusting there's purpose in the fear. The presence of doubt doesn't prove the absence of faith. It proves faith is still alive and fighting. Sometimes your doubt is the doorway to deeper understanding. It humbles you, breaks your pride, and opens your heart to receive what your mind can't grasp. When you admit your doubt, you make space for grace. God doesn't run from your uncertainty, He meets you there. He doesn't punish you for your questions, He uses them to strengthen your trust. Every time you face doubt and choose to keep believing anyway, you're building a resilience that logic could never produce. Your mind might say, what if I'm wrong? But faith whispers, what if you're right? That whisper is enough to move mountains. You don't need unshakable faith. You just need faith the size of a mustard seed. Because even small faith, when consistent, grows into unstoppable confidence. You don't conquer doubt by fighting it. You conquer it by walking through it. The more you practice trusting through uncertainty, the less power doubt holds over you. And maybe the reason God allows doubt is because it keeps you dependent on Him. If you always knew the answers, you'd stop seeking the source. Doubt humbles the ego and strengthens the connection. It teaches you that faith isn't a finish line. It's a relationship. And that relationship deepens every time you admit, I don't know how this will work out, but I still trust you. You've been gripping so tightly to control that you've forgotten how to breathe. You're trying to choreograph every detail, calculate every outcome, and fix what was never yours to fix. But the truth is, control is an illusion. You're not meant to carry the weight of the whole picture. You're meant to trust the one who painted it. Letting go isn't giving up, it's permitting God to move. It's saying, I trust that even in the unknown, you're still in control. You can't receive new blessings with clenched fists. Sometimes surrender is the only key that unlocks the next door. The more you hold on, the more you block what's trying to reach you. Control creates tension, and tension closes your hands. But trust opens them. You can't catch what's meant for you if you're gripping what's leaving. God can't pour new water into a cup that's already full of worry. You think letting go means losing something, but in reality, it's creating space for something better. When you finally release what you can't control, you make room for miracles that logic could never make happen. Letting go is hard because it feels like you're doing nothing. But spiritually, it's the most powerful move you can make. It's the silent declaration that says, I'm done playing God with my own life. The moment you stop forcing things, you start aligning with divine timing. What's meant for you will find you, not when you chase it, but when you're ready for it. You can't rush what's sacred. You can't pressure what's divinely timed. You can only prepare yourself by staying open, faithful, and willing. You see, letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop controlling. It means you do your part and release the rest. It's understanding that faith and force can't coexist. You either trust God to handle what you can't, or you exhaust yourself trying to do His job. The universe moves when you stop micromanaging your blessings. When you let go, life starts to flow again. Doors open, people align, energy shifts. The same situations that once felt heavy suddenly start moving effortlessly because you stopped holding them hostage. Sometimes God delays things not because you're unworthy, but because your hands are too full. He's not withholding blessings. He's waiting for your surrender. Letting go is the bridge between struggle and peace. It's the point where fear transforms into faith. And once you've tasted that freedom, the kind that comes from saying, I'll stop controlling and start trusting, you'll never want to live any other way. And maybe that's what faith really is, not knowing what's next, but trusting who is next. Letting go doesn't mean life gets easier. It means you get lighter. Because once you release what was never yours to carry, you finally make room for God to move how only He can. The moment you let go of the plan you had, you open yourself to the one that was written for you all along.